What movie cliche has happened to you in real life? Walking car puddle splash wet sad. I got hit by a car and clung to the hood for half a block until it coasted to a stop. I ran and slipped on a banana peel. Hit my ass hard. Couldn't stand up for a few minutes. I got bitten by a spider, but my superpower turned out to be nearly dying, which was a bit of a letdown. A whole bar reacted helpfully when lying to parents. My girlfriend was hanging out with me and some friends, and when her parents called she said, "Oh it's my mom." And one of the people there with shouts across the bar, "Everybody quiet, her mom's on the phone." And they did. They stopped playing pool. The bartender froze. And everybody stopped talking. GF does the bit that she's at their house and gets off the phone, and my friend shouts, "Okay, we're clear." And everyone goes about their business. Most amazing thing I've seen. Met a foreign exchange student when she was in the US. For a year. Dated her for 3 months. I was her first. She was mine. She left 3 months later. Talked to her on the phone a few times. Late 90s. Mind you. Dad got phone bill and said to stop. Was going to write her and tell her. Wrote whole thing but never sent. Just stopped calling and taking her calls. Exactly 10 years later. Not exact date. She comes back to visit friends. My friends spot her at a local jazz concert thingy. She has a boyfriend, but I do not. She sounded okay with him at the time, but we still ended up talking that night. She left the next day to go back to Germany. We started talking via email. She breaks up with boyfriend. She is a flight attendant, so we meet in different cities nearby for the next 4 years. I end up moving to Germany and company happens to let me work remotely for them. Would not have moved otherwise. 8 years later. Living in Germany. 2 kids. Nothing to complain about. I worked in a cubicle. We got a new time clock system with key cards you had to swipe. I'd forgotten about the new system and just left at the end of my shift. I arrived the next day and noticed my error. I approached the on-duty manager, informed him of my mistake and asked him to clock me out at my normal end time. You know you have to swipe out at the end of the day. Yes, I know. I just forgot. Did you get the email about it? Yo, I still have it. It just kind of slipped my me. I'll email you another copy. 2 hours later a different manager walks up. Hey, I heard you didn't clock out last night. Yeah. Sorry about that. I know the new procedure. I just forgot. We sent instructions out in an email last week. Did you get it? I did. I just kind of autopiloted my way out yesterday. Oh okay. Well, it's really important you follow those directions. I'll email you another copy. That's how I got 6 copies of that email. And 2 paper copies on my desk. I had just watched Office Space the weekend prior. I almost lost it. All 6 of my bosses resent me that email. After years apart, I married the girl next door. I stepped on a rake and the handle swung up and hit me in the face. I had my first kiss while lying in the grass at a park, cloud watching. Stood over my wife in the hospital as she died. And yes, you really do say mushy stuff in those final minutes. I fell in love with my old enemy. We grew up together and hated each other. We reconnected after college and now have been married for 3 years. After an excellent date we hugged goodbye at my car. He was a little shy, awkward and didn't go in for a kiss. I decided not to let the moment pass and went after him. And we kissed in the middle of the parking lot. He held the back of my head and I truly saw fireworks. Went over my boyfriend's house. We were both still living at home, and he grabbed his laptop to look something up. Not realizing there was porn on there, the audio starts playing. He quickly shuts the laptop but the audio continues. It felt straight out of an American Pie movie. One of my favorite stories. Amnesia. The experience is nothing like the soaps or movies. Yet to see anyone replicate what it's like. Got pulled over for speeding on the way to the hospital when my wife was about to deliver. No police escort, but waved me on quickly. Someone running to the airport to declare love for me before I got on a flight. After barely speaking to me for 2 years and having a whole host of problems while we were dating. Doing something with a girl, me being a guy, that ends with us facing each other at a really close distance. looking at each other for a couple of seconds, and without a word led to us making out and clothes flying. Fell for the girl who was right under my nose for a year and happened to be my neighbor. On night, after putting the girl who I was supposed to have a fling with to bed because of drunk shenanigans, I went back out to the bars, saw my neighbor, we ran into each other's arms, went on our own bar crawl, somewhere along the way started making out and woke up the next morning cuddling on her couch, then went to bed to cuddle for a few more hours. We were going to have the typical hangout night and play Madden and drink beers. We rounded up our money and it came up to a whopping $20. Two of us hopped in the car and drove to 7-Eleven to get our supplies. We ended up getting like 2 24 packs and some Doritos. Once we got back to the house we started putting them all in the bottom shelf of the fridge. Another friend comes into the kitchen and sees all the beer. "You got all that for $20? Without missing a beat my buddy responds, "All that and a bag of chips." I live in a rural area and saw something right out of a Disney movie. A few years ago a mother deer and her baby were crossing the road in front of me. Unfortunately it was a blind curve section and the mother got to the other side but the baby stopped in the middle of the road. I stopped my car, hoping that no one was coming the other way. I was deciding whether to go out and physically move the baby. The baby then crouched down sort of in a downward dog position and put its front hooves over its eyes. It finally went to the side of the road in a clump of high grass. I couldn't see the baby anymore but the grass was swaying from the baby's shaking. It was a scene out of Bambi. The villain being your father. Had a conversation on the phone that ended without a goodbye, just a hang up. Just the other day, I was walking down a hall and talking to a guy and he did that thing that they do in movies where they step in front of you, stop walking and say something important. But for that, I've only ever seen it in movies. Very first day of college, saw a beautiful girl standing outside my first class, waiting for professor, felt butterflies in the whole nine. We started going out, and ended up getting married. Straight up love at first sight. All that was missing was this magic moment playing in the background. A coworker asked me to take out his cousin from out of town. Didn't think much about it. Just doing a friend a favor. How bad could it be? How great could it be? She was a model with a hot accent. We had a pretty good date that ended with a fairly intense makeout session. Kind of wish she'd been the lead actress rather than a one scene cameo. But over 20 years later I still remember it fondly. Right out of a cliche 90s teen movie. I was 18. Six pack. Starting to get a build. I was rocking this blonde high flat top. I was walking down the street in a beach town. My giddy up was flip flops, hockey shorts, a tie-dye tank top, bright blue blazer, and of course shades. Near a corner these four girls in a car cruising catcalled me. Then they ran into the back of a car stopped at the red light. 18-year-old me didn't know what to do, but keep walking, awkwardly, blushing, giddy. I once started a cheesy ass sing-along in a London pub, and was lifted up by the crowd in the style of a 80s sitcom freeze frame ending, or like Squidward after the Bubble Bowl concert. I was drunk as duck. In the smoking area, there were a ducking lot of people. There was One Direction playing, which I thought was it. So I just leaned back in a drunken haze and sung as loud as I could slip inside the eye of your mind. And literally everyone turned around and screamed, "Don't you know you might find?" And I was all "Oh it, I've gone viral." Everyone was holding up pints singing along at the top of their lungs so loud that people from the other pubs and bars next door were singing too. And then I was lifted up by some big rugby duckers for the chorus. I crowd surfed for another few songs before I had to pee. And there it was. The peak of the night. I've never had a night that took me to the social highs like that night did. One morning I woke up and realized I was in Las Vegas, covered in tattoos, and married to a drug addicted dancer. Yes, really. No, it didn't end well. The FBI was banging down my door at 6 AM yesterday. They searched and seized me and all my housemates. 5 of us. We were detained and investigated by the Cyber Crimes Unit. In high school, I was the girl who was shy, considered a nerd. People would make fun of me. It was miserable. In the middle of a school year, a new guy moved here. to the US from Romania. And of course all the girls wanted him. Me and him got to talking and started dating a few weeks later. I secretly had feelings for a close friend and he also secretly had feelings for me. But we both assumed the other didn't have feelings, so neither of us acted on our feelings. Sadly, and like the movie cliche, we never had a big reveal moment. We both eventually moved on and started dating other people. By the time we found out that we had actually both liked each other, we both no longer felt that way about the other. We had a good laugh about it in the end though. I went to college at Nebraska, lived with a few friends my freshman year. We had just moved to Lincoln and were walking around on a Saturday night looking for a party. We walked by what I believe was a barbecue joint, but this place was hopping. Loud music blaring from the windows. People yelling. Cars everywhere. So the three of us, white 18-year-olds from the suburbs, thought we need to check this place out. Seems awesome. We walked in and saw a large room full of African Americans hanging out partying. Instantly the music stopped. Everyone got quiet and were all staring at us. I swear I heard a record scratch, but that was probably in my mind. I remember saying something like sorry, wrong place, and we walked out. Music goes back on and party continues like we were never there. We still laugh about it. The cliche where the guy and girl get into a big fight and the girl plans to leave town and never come back, but the guy at the last second confesses his love so she stays. That almost happened to me, but real life got in the way. I got into a big fight with my friend who I had a huge crush on. Turns out she also had a huge crush on me. She was thinking about moving back to her hometown about 800 miles away. After the fight she decided to move and had a going away party. She was expecting me to show up and tell her not to leave or summit. Well, I was traveling for work the day of her going away, which I had told her, but she was too drunk to remember. So the day of her party she texts me to come. I can't because I was in Louisiana for work. So she ended up moving and now regrets it. Turns out I ended up dodging a pretty big bullet. I was the nerdiest kid in high school. This super hot girl I had a crush on always dated guys on the football team, but was always really nice to me for some reason. Fast forward to senior year, and she just broke up with her asshole boyfriend for cheating on her. All the guys are salivating at the chance of getting with her before graduation, and I muster up the courage to sarcastically ask if she wants to go to the prom with me. My mind is ducking blown away when she enthusiastically says yes. During these years, I played a duck ton of Dance Revolution, and while extremely nerdy, I have some pretty sick dance moves. During the prom we end up dancing in the middle of the floor and blow the crowd away, while her asshole ex-boyfriend is sitting at a table by himself drinking out of a flask. We ended up getting crowned king and queen of the prom. Things take off from there. I end up starting my own web consulting business straight out of high school. Sold it for a huge chunk of change, and retired early in my 20s. Her asshole ex-BF football player from high school works at the local 7-Eleven as a cashier, which we frequently run into on the weekends. We've been married for over 10 years and she's the best thing that ever happened to me. My first kiss was in the rain. I'm a firefighter and was in a firefighter charity calendar. It was shocking how filthy women are. When we went to events to promote it, I had women blatantly trying to sleep with me knowing that I'm married. They had no shame and come on strong. You know how when people are running from something in the movies and then trip and fall at the worst possible time? Yeah. Happened to me while running from a crazy dog one late evening. On the plus side, the dog was so startled by my fall that it stopped, which gave me a second to stand up and get inside. Do porn cliches count? I've recounted this one before. As an IT consultant, I was sent to a B-list starlet's home in the Hollywood Hills to help with her home computer. When I arrived, she and her friend were dressed in Daisy Dukes and t-shirts. Her AC was out, as well, and they were waiting for the HVAC repairman, too. Sadly, that's as far as the porn intro went, at least for me. Perhaps there's an HVAC repairman out there with a much better ending to the story. I had to be at school late one night to help with a small event going on at the same time that college decisions came out for my dream school. A few minutes before I was due to get the decision, I excused myself to go to the bathroom. I read that I had been accepted, cried, and then headed back into the room where the event was taking place to tell some of my friends. The second one person heard, everyone started clapping and congratulating me, including a ton of kids from different grades and who I barely knew. It was such a nice experience and still makes me smile. First kiss under a blossoming cherry tree, cheesy onliner and all. We had met in a Japanese course, which she later told me she took in part because she knew I took it as well and she had had a crush on me. So one day decided to get ice cream together. Afterwards we just sat down on a park bench under a tree and talked for hours. It was a very sunny day. I asked her whether she thought a kiss in the sunlight or a kiss in the rain was more romantic. Obviously, she went with the kiss in the rain, so I brought my cheesy onliner. Do you want to wait for the rain? She said no, and that's how my first kiss was absolutely perfect. 4 months later she broke up with me via WhatsApp. I lost the mother of the bride at a wedding. I always tell people it was the most sitcom moment of my life. My roommate at the time got married, and her mom was staying at our apartment. All she had to do was follow me and my now husband back to said apartment. It was a total of 3 roads. Bride warned me she was bad with directions, but I figured it was 3 roads. Instead of following us, she got onto a freeway heading towards downtown. Of course her phone is dead. She doesn't have a charger, doesn't even have our address memorized anyway. We turned around, got on the freeway, checked gas stations at every exit, and no one had seen her. Eventually it was past 2 AM and my husband was done. He said she was a grown woman and was going to have to figure it out. So we went home and I dreaded having to tell my roommate her mom wasn't going to make to the gift opening because I freaking lost her. Luckily, she eventually had the sense to realize she wasn't supposed to be downtown. Asked for directions to the city she was supposed to be in. Drove around until she recognized something. She got back to the apartment around 3:30 am. But seriously, who full on loses the mob in real life? I rescued a beautiful woman from the villain's lair as it crumbled to pieces around us, twice. Does it foreshadowing count? I do reenactment. I spent a semester at uni recruiting and training, saying that we need the rules to ensure nobody gets hurt, and in 5 years or doing reenactment I had never seen any serious injuries because of the rules. My go-to was saying we need the rules to so we don't get stabbed in the face. Guess who got stabbed in the face? So, pretty much since I started dating my now wife 4.5 years ago, her parents, conservative Pentecostal, have thought I, liberal, agnostic, was the worst human being imaginable. I'm talking they actively tried to get my so to break up with me, multiple times. Her father has come around and is pretty nice now, but her mother, while tolerating of me, hasn't really gotten much better. So, I am officially a guy from a comedy with in-laws who hate them intensely in almost comical ways. Thankfully my side of the family adores my so that's nice. I was on the phone with a friend who was informing me a mutual friend of ours died. After hanging up the phone, my brother, who had no way of knowing the conversation, walks in the room and jokingly asks, "Who died?" Without a word I looked at him and slapped him across the face. He instantly teared up from shock and hurt feelings, feebly apologized and ran out the room before I could even process what I'd just done. My parents didn't believe me at first that my friend had really died, and my brother just happened to ask the wrong question because it sounded too much like a movie moment to them. Oh, I do have one. A sketchy non-college guy sold drugs at our dorm. It started out as pot and booze, then moved into powder and pills, ice, the works. It was a transformation of the whole scene, where in the first semester if you went outside at night for a cigarette you'd see kids smoking pot or drunk and trying to bum a smoke. By second semester a lot of people had dropped out, and during those nights when completing a project people would be methed out, ducking nightmare. By the end of the year the State Investigation Bureau was making raids. The guy at the center of it was starting to get violent and feel trapped. The alleged star witness for the state was a girl in our dorm who had taken a bad batch of something and would up in an institution. When she got out she went to a mall and was gunned down by that guy's former roommate. Pretty ducked up.